For that, before we go into Dr. Khalidi kindly speaks to us, we will start with his biography. Yusuf Jan from BAC, he's the head of BAC, and he will tell us about Dr. Khalidi, and after that we will carry on with the rest of the program. Just to make sure that everybody benefits from today's event, the language will be English, but anyone speaking or asking in any language or discussing in any language when we come to the discussion will be fine as well.
Dr. Noor Khalidi was born in January 1950 in Afghanistan. He completed his primary education at Sayyid Jamaluddin Afghan School in Kabul and subsequently graduated from the famous Habibia High School in 1967. Dr. Khalidi received his BA degree in National Economics from the Kabul University, and as an outstanding graduate, his degree was conferred to him by then Prime Minister Mr. Mohammad Musa Shafiq in 1972. He completed his master's degree in population science from the International Institute from the Population Science in Bombay, India, and subsequently completed his 3 years field research on the subject of Australia integrous population demography in Australia, and received his PhD degree in demography from prestigious the Australian National University in 1990s. From 1973 to 1975, for 12 years, Dr. Khalidi worked at the various posts with the government of Afghanistan at the Ministry of Planning, the Central Statistics Organization, and the Ministry of Public Health. He was also working part-time with UNICEF, Kabul. From 1989 to 2014, Dr. Khalidi worked for the Australian federal government in Canberra, as well as the state government of New South Wales and Sydney, and the government of Queensland and Brisbane. Among the posts he held are advisors for the Office of Prime Minister and the Cabinet. He also worked as a population specialist with the South Pacific Commission based in Noumea, New Caledonia, advising the South Pacific Island countries on the matter of related population and development. After retirement from the government, Dr. Khalidi worked as a freelance consultant in the field of demography, population, and household through KRD Social Consulting, whose customers are government agency in the field of community, families, and public housing providers. During his tenure with the government of Afghanistan, Dr. Noor Khalidi drafted several keynote speeches for the high-ranking government officials, attending major domestic and international conferences. Among them, they drafted the 7 years economic development plan section, then the President Mohammad Dawood Khan's speech at the 1977 Loya Jirga. Similarly, he drafted the speeches delivered by the Third Population Conference for the Asia and Pacific in 1982 in Sri Lanka, and the United Nations International Conference on Population, Mexico, 1984. Over the last 20 years, Dr. Khalidi prepared 9 major publications on the subject of youth as well as population and household projections for many governments and community agencies in Australia, of which 6 of such work have been published for public use by those agencies are available at the International Library Australia. Similarly, Dr. Khalidi has published numerous articles in Australia, Afghanistan, and elsewhere on the variety of subjects. He has 61 articles on Afghan German online website, as well as 85 articles on the Ariana Afghanistan online website. He also has a number of articles in English and Dari on the academic website of the Academia. His articles entitled "The Ethnic Composition of the Population of Afghanistan" has been downloaded many hundred times by the people in many countries around the world. Dr. Khalidi has published fiction books entitled The Avalanche, which is based on the September 11 events in the USA and its impact on Afghanistan. Two of his latest books are currently under print in Afghanistan, entitled Current Political Issue in Afghanistan and Highlight of History: The Temporary History of Afghanistan for the University Students. During the last two years, Dr. Khalidi produced and presented weekly television talk shows, Dornama on Zareen TV and Sokhane Rose on Afghanistan TV, dedicated to analyze of the current political and social issue in Afghanistan. Upon request by the Herat University, Dr. Khalidi delivered a 3-month consist course on the temporary history of Afghanistan for the university students, was weekly lessons using Skype. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yusuf Jan. Great work Dr. Khalidi has done over the years. About today, as I said, this course Afghanistan is an independent research organization, non-for-profit, working in researching Afghanistan. And BAC is a coordination group of all societies here in UK. So today's, the way we're going to work today is our only panel, our only speaker is Dr. Khalidi. He's going to talk to us about the current affairs in Afghanistan for maybe 20 minutes or half an hour. And after that, we will open the floor and we will have a discussion, and we could ask Dr. Khalidi questions. And at the end, we have lunch provided as well. So bear with us, and I would ask Dr. Khalidi to kind of talk. Do you think we need Do you think we need the microphone? Can you hear us?
Yes, of course.
No?
Okay. But you can just sit. You can just sit. شما I live just here. Yeah.
Oh, good. That's better. Thank you very much, Dr. Sangalwal, and Mr. Yusuf, for your kind introduction. Lady and gentlemen, it's an honor and pleasure for me to have an opportunity to talk to you today about the, as you say, the fast-pacing and changing by the minute situation in Afghanistan. And it's really, Afghanistan is again on a crossroad. Once again, we are on a crossroad, and a decisive one this time. Every time, unfortunately, we had a bloodbath in Afghanistan, and then we go on and wear our old and dirty clothes. This was a saying by someone, I forgot the name, but this is really applied, really, nicely applied to the situation, unfortunately, on Afghanistan, what's going on there. The issue is, or the important issue is, how to stop this cycle, this vicious cycle. How to stop this vicious cycle. Every time we go, this is 18 years, we are trying to build, people of Afghanistan trying to build a peace-loving, prosperous, democratic society, a just society. But again, we are coming to the point that we are on the edge of losing everything, back going to the basics and starting again. How we could stop this cycle? This is important. Luckily, we were just about to fall into that trap again. But events of this morning, coming news from the United States, as President Trump discarded the supposedly peace process proposed or negotiated by Ms. Zalmay Khalilzad, we think we have avoided a big fall into a trap. It was a trap laid by Pakistan. I don't know how Khalid fall into that trap. I'm not sure. But it was a trap very nicely harmonized or drawn by the intelligence services, and he was falling for it. I don't know what was the imperative and what was his, ideas around that for the future of United States relations with other countries in the region. But it was a disaster. It was a disaster. My suspicion is that it was not only the deal between the United States and the Taliban that he was talking about, that this is the deal between the United States and Taliban for the safe withdrawal of the American forces and assurances by the Taliban to avoid the past practices and not to let Afghanistan become the springboard for the terrorist organizations again. This is on the face of it, this is strange. United States seeking security assurances from a group, a Tahrik, a Tanzim. This was by itself, it is a matter of great concern. How United States could seek assurances from a group who was engaged in a lot of terrorist acts in Afghanistan, and their relationship with the other groups like Al-Qaeda and others is not because of a short-sighted issues. It's their relationship are fundamental. It's ideological. You cannot expect Taliban to change their ideology, to say we will stop affiliating with those groups again. This is their ideology. This is their fundamental. It was unbelievable that a person like Khalid could fall into that trap, to believe that the Taliban will be a detachment from all those groups in the future. Anyway, this has been avoided. My suspicion was that he negotiated during 9 months the whole scenario for future of Afghanistan. On the face of it, he was talking about only the American-Taliban relationship, but you cannot negotiate 9 months, 2 pages of paper, 5 paragraphs. When I'm leaving, you do not attack us. While you are in power, you do not let Afghanistan be a springboard for the terrorist organization. This is half an hour talk at most. So my suspicion was that he negotiated the whole package. The whole package, because he said on his interview with Tolo that there are, subsidiary papers that have been negotiated. So he negotiated the whole scenario of future Afghanistan structure of the future government led by the Taliban, and how this structure should work in detail. And he just, on the face of it, because that was the reason Pakistan Prime Minister was cheering that we will have a good government in Afghanistan. A good government in Afghanistan, and it will be soon. Afghanistan, the government didn't know about it, and nobody knew what's happening. But this package was in secret agreed by both parties. And this was the problem was this, because in any future inter-Afghan dialogue, I think they were just bringing that scenario and trying to impose it on Afghan people. So, luckily, the Afghan government took a principled position. That first, negotiations behind the Afghan government is a fallacy, and it shouldn't have been conducted at all. So, and then if United States and its allies wants to leave Afghanistan, we are welcoming their contribution, We are appreciating their contribution in Afghanistan development, their continued assistance. We are wishing them well. However, we expect the United States and the coalition, international coalition, to continue their support for the Afghan people and the building a new Afghanistan. However, this was not how it was shaping up. The way it was shaping up was that the attempt was made to delegitimize the government, the elected government of Afghanistan, the legitimate government of Afghanistan, and at the same time legitimize a group whom has no territory, has no capital, has no money, has no passport. They're traveling by other people's passports. We are legitimizing through this process a group. However, we are calling them Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. It's a government. You're addressing as a state. And while you are addressing the Afghan government as a Bainul Afghani or intra-Afghan groups. So you're submerging the Afghan government into other groups while you're promoting Taliban as a state, Emirate, Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, as a state. This was a big mistake. And I think the United States administration finally realized that how dangerous this is for not only Afghanistan, but for the whole groups that are fighting the governments in other countries, and how a bad precedent this would lay. So hopefully from now on, any negotiations, any attempts to bring peace in Afghanistan conducted through by a proper, logical approach, through negotiating the sides who are fighting. Who are fighting? Is Taliban or resisting, fighting the Afghan government security forces. For the last 15, 16 years, they were fighting the Afghan security forces. And the Afghan government is a legitimate government because it has a constitution, it has a structure, it's a legal system, the judiciary, the media. It's a system. It's based on a constitution, and it works. We have problems. We have a lot of problems in terms of how we adhere to democratic rights of people, how we exercise our freedom of speech, how we exercise our freedom. However, but the system is there. The structure is in place, and people are looking forward to that structure. We had a lot of problems last 8 to 18 years. However, a lot of progress has been made. People should not make this mistake. A lot of progress has been made in Afghanistan, into education, health, social reforms, women's rights, health reforms, infrastructure, communication, housing, roads, and also the government buildings. We had, in 2001, the government was non-existent. We had a collapse of the system. There was no government in Afghanistan. Even, when Americans came, they gave each minister a package of a desk and a chair and a computer. Even the country could not provide their ministers their office. So now, from what we have today in Afghanistan compared to 2000 is unbelievable. It's uncomparable. So during this period, the Taliban, it's interesting. Taliban is active last 25 years. I do not have seen more than 10 pages written by Taliban about their ideas, about their approaches, about their ideology, about their future vision. Nothing. During their tenure in power, we didn't see anything. We didn't see any efforts to relieve people from their poverty, to help people in their health problems or communication, and they were not interested in those areas. And they did not publish, even last 18 years, anything to show what they want for Afghanistan in future. So there's a gap of information about Taliban. People say they changed. They are not the same Taliban as the past. But how we should know that? How we could understand that they have changed? And if really they have changed? For them, what is the guarantee? Will they accept a constitution? First of all, they do not believe in a constitution. Constitution is fundamental for a country. They do not believe in it. So if you do not believe in a constitution, then how you build a state? They do not believe in jamhuri, in republic. They do not believe in giving people the right to vote, and the right to elect, or the right to be elected. So there's a lot of gray areas, black areas on the issue of Taliban's ideology in terms of understanding what they want for Afghanistan in future, how they would relate to current developments in Afghanistan, how they're up to date with current situation in Afghanistan. I'm not sure if they are. They're still in their ghettos or somehow, they do not. I'm not sure if they understand. The development has been made in Afghanistan enormous in terms of human rights, understanding people. People know today their rights. They exercise it every day. They would be very alien to that. So this is the situation. How we move on forward from now to the future? Only through a clear understanding. It's not good enough to say we want an Islamic regime. We have to define it in every step of the way. We put the constitution on the table. We say, okay, we start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What do you mean by Bismillah ar-Rahman? We agree with that, the same Bismillah ar-Rahman, that you read the same thing from that sentence or not? We should start paragraph by paragraph. The people's rights, the structures of the government, the relations of people, the language, everything should be clear. They should come clean before signing any agreement, any peace agreement. Unless we are clear on every facet of a structure that the government would have in Afghanistan in future, there shouldn't be any agreement on a peace deal or government. There should be concrete understanding on every aspect of the. So this is the only. If I advise President Ghani or anybody else, I would say, just put the constitution on the table, go for it paragraph by paragraph, see where the problem is. That's the only document for negotiable. There's nothing else, no ideas. Constitution is the only document that we should discuss from day one. We start from preamble to the end. If we agree on a constitution that guarantees the rights of people, guarantees how a modern state in this world can be formed, that is in service of its people, that could provide for its people, then we are on the right track. So we don't mind, any people might have different ideas. We are welcoming, diversity. People should welcome diversity of ideas, only if it's directed toward a future that people, there is a light at the end of the tunnel for people of Afghanistan, in terms of economic development, in terms of social development, in terms of relationship between the neighbors, a peace-loving country that do not interfere with other people's, other countries' internal affairs, and respected government that make Afghanistan as a real crossroad of cultures that it is, and translate into a crossroad of trade and crossroad of ideas. And we have a lot of potential for that. I worked 12 years in many years in the Ministry of Planning in Afghanistan during the Dawood Khan's 7-year socio-economic development plan. I know how potential we have. What all these, there are ideas circulating that Americans discovered that Afghanistan has so much. We knew it in 1973. We knew it in 1975. All these, mines and these resources that exist underground. The only resource we didn't know then was this lithium. This is the only mine that it was not discovered. I was sitting with Dawood Khan's elder son, Omar Dawood. It was like 8 o'clock in the night. We were working on the 7-year plan. That he had a call, and this deputy minister of mines came in a hurry. He said they found uranium in Khan Shin in Helmand. This was 1976. So all of these were known to people of Afghanistan. The problem was we didn't have the capacity to develop. We didn't have the capacity to observe, first of all. A single iron ore project, say in Haji Gag, would have had a capacity of 2 million tons in a year to be economically viable. Afghanistan didn't have that capacity. We should have, the transportation facilities to export iron ore to Iran. That was on the plan, so that we could do at least this. The Mesa Ainak was on the cards then. So there are a lot of projects that at the time were on the paper, and now we could, if we have this peace allows, we could embark on those projects now, because now Afghanistan are in a different position. First, we have the population base that can support these developments. Then we had 15 million people. Now we have 35 million people. So we have the demand for services. We have a better income from our domestic sources. We have better income. The other day I heard that Afghanistan this year had 3 million tons of wheat produced. When I was director of agricultural statistics with the Central Statistics Office, it was 2 million tons. So at least we had 1 million ton improvement on the production of wheat. So, and they say 3 million ton is enough for domestic products. So this is a good sign. So there's a lot of potential in Afghanistan, and it requires peace. Like Sashumari, there's nifus, like census of population. If you do not have peace, you can never embark on that. And it's one of the fundamental programs so that you could build upon your socioeconomic development. So coming now back to how we go from now. So the forthcoming election in Afghanistan is a fundamental issue for us, for all of Afghans. This is, people should have a professional approach to a government. It is not my choice to say that there should be a temporary or provisional government or a transitional government. under which provisions? This is a state, this is a structure based on a constitution. If you break or you do not adhere to constitution provisions on how a new government should be formed or transformed, or this administration, hands over to the next administration, to a legal process, to a process already stipulated in the constitution, then you're doing a coup d'etat. That's a coup d'etat. That's the meaning of coup d'etat.
Yeah.
So everybody should have a clear mind. Do you want a revolution, a coup d'etat, of toppling this government and installing? When in 2001 Karzai became president, we didn't have a state. It was a collapsed state. It was a failed state. But today we don't have that. We have a state. We have a government, works. A lot of problems, but it works. The system is there. So any transition to a new administration should be legal, should be through constitutional provisions. So for that matter, elections, conducting elections is a must. This will give a new administration a mandate from the people to talk to Taliban, to talk to foreign countries, to talk to mediators, or from a position of strength, from a position that from a government, from a state is expected, so that they could deliver. We have the Loejiga, which was just completed a couple of months ago, was a fundamental importance, because that gives the government a mandate that these are the red lines and these are the negotiating points that you could talk to Taliban. Otherwise, it is just the wishes of the president or his ideas, which is not good enough, and it's not for the sake of the good of the country, for the future, and for to how to come to an understanding with Taliban about the future. Now, this elections should be conducted in time, and I hope this time our politicians have learned to adhere to the wishes of people. They should not repeat again the same scenarios of the 5 years ago. Accept the decision of people, even if it is. Legitimacy of a president is coming from the opposition. When the opposition takes a phone and calls the president, says, "I congratulate you on your victory," that is the legitimacy. Afghanistan, unfortunately, had not exercised this. Our opposition, the opposition, not me and my, it is the government, the winner or the loser, they had not the decency to accept what is people's verdict. And we lost that legitimacy that is required by a government. So I hope this time, whoever wins, the opposition pick up the phone and call his competitor and congratulate the person that you won the election. So that gives us, a lot of strength. That gives us, and give the new president, new administration, a lot of strength. And another thing, the structure of the government, the body of the administration should be completely neutral. The state should be neutral. Apart from the ministers who are politicians, nobody else should be allowed to be installed because of political affiliations. So is the security forces, so is the judiciary. Politics should be left to people who contesting to parliament, the media, public. They have the right. But administration should be neutral. And a neutral administration should serve the people. And a neutral administration, the job is to implement the policies of the government of the then. So the government is drawing the policies, the administration is delivering them, no matter which administration it is in power. One day is the conservative, next day is the liberal, another is Labour. I have worked, as mentioned, for 26 years in the Australian government. I worked in the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. Have seen so many, administration changes. It's always the administration was neutral, especially when the election was called. The government goes, the administration goes into caretaking mode. During the caretaking mode, the government, the administration do not do any radical things, do not embark any radical programs, just tries to complete, the day-to-day, to deliver day-to-day activities. That's all. Now, I think I have spoken enough, Yeah. Well, I would be happy to take any questions that you may have. I had no notes. We didn't have time to prepare any notes and to prepare, for this meeting. My time was so hectic.
Recorded.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Very much, Dr. Khalidi.
Thank you for your attention.
So now we have time for questions, and it's only going to be questions or a very short comment. So if anyone want to ask Dr. Khalidi any question, just let us know, and then we will take the discussion from there.
Take the name first.
Yeah, and just introduce yourself. Okay, please go and clarify. Sorry, just back on. Whichever you comfortable.
چې په ټوله نړۍ کې زه به وایم تاسو لومړی کس یې چې یو عملي قدم مو واخیست او په دې د افغانستان کې دا روانه کومه خبره چې ده په دې کې هم د ملکیت دعوه وکړه د اونرشپ چې څه ته وایي نورالله خان او موږ په دې ډېر زیات کار کوو لګیا وو ستاسو د ټولو خبرو سره زه متفق یم زما سوال دا دی چې دا دلته په برطانیه کې ناست خلک یو موږ آیا موږ په افغانستان کې د تاسو چې کومه خبره وکړه اساسي قانون د ټولو نه مقدس دی وطن اساسي قانون ملي اردو او د وطن ادارې ستاسو د خبرو دا ډېره سپینه شوه چې مخکې دا تجربه زموږ په وطن کې ناکامه شوې ده په زرګونو خلک د دې په نتیجه کې مړه شوي دي او کابل لوټې لوټې شوی دی اوس بیا هغه وخت راغلی دی خو زمانه بدله ده نړۍ بدله ده انټرنیټ دی سوشل میډیا ده او دا د په لندن کې د خوشبختۍ نه خلک راغونډ شوي دي د خپل وطن خبره کوي نو دلته موږ دا خبره نوره وسیع کوو او د دې ځای افغانانو ته دغه احساس ورکوو دا تاسو چې د ملکیت کوم احساس راوړی چې افغانستان نه د غني دی نه د بل چا دی نه د بل چا دی دا د دغه بیرغ د دغه اساسي قانون او زموږ د ټولو دی نو موږ دا خبره نوره مخکې وړو په دې ځای نن په دې لیکچر او په دې ډوډۍ یې نه ختموو بلکې د دې لپاره تاسو چې د اسټرالیا نه راغلي دا ډېره لویه خبره ده پکار ده چې موږ سبان صاحب راغونډ کړی وي ستاسو نه مخکې پکار ده چې موږ وزیري صاحب راغونډ کړی وي ستاسو نه مخکې نو تاسو ډېر د ویاړ خلک یې خدای تاسو له دې اجر درکړي موږ تیار یو چې موږ ستاسو د دې هرې خبرې عملي ملګرتیا وکړو دا خبره په مخ ووسو او تاسو په خبرو کې یو خبره بله ایډ کړئ چې افغانستان په موجوده وخت کې په ټوله دنیا کې سفارتونه لري دغه ملي بیرغ لري او دا دنیا منلې دي نو که څوک او بیا طالبان چې دي دا د بل چا لاسپوڅي دي موږ په ډېر ښه خبر یو نو د دې سره که خبره کېږي د ټول افغان ملت په خوښه به کېږي او دا ملت چې دی دا به د اساسي قانون دفاع کوي پکار ده چې موږ دا سلوګن شعار جوړ کړو چې اساسي قانون ته عزت ورکې اساسي قانون ته درناوی ورکې بل هیڅ نه منو
بالکل صحیح
مننه
مننه
Just a comment from Faikhan. Any other question or a short comment? Please, Mehman.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for your comprehensive. Sorry, first of all, my name is Karim Shri.
Thanks.
And thank you for your fully comprehensive speech. However, I heard so many words in your speech, which I picked only two in order to give time to other friends as well. One why I'm going to help to give my opinion, and
yeah,
one
sure.
why I want you,
Sure.
please, if you
Sure,
could.
sure.
The first why is you said that why the United States is negotiating on behalf of the Afghan people.
Yeah.
Why the United States, despite our people going to war, chop their fingers but going to war, but still our president is elected by the United States, and so many otherwise. If you just please you answer or help to explain that why you are still relying on foreign decisions. Mm-hmm. And the second why you just said that why this vicious, repetitive, and continuous wars in Afghanistan. And I would say that because we are not learning from our past. We are a great, regrettable nation. We are repeating the same mistakes. We are crying after we're losing our leaders. And that's what it's coming today as well. We saw so many people going to other embassies, crying and clapping for other people's, for other nations' anthems, where they come into their own anthem, national anthem, they're sitting, they're not respecting it. Mm-hmm. Because we are not accepting each other. That's why, because we want more and very quick. We want the result first, and then we want to lay the foundation. And that's all the mistakes. And finally, because we are not loyal for our national interest, our personal interest is so respected than the national interest for us. If you have some more on that.
Yeah.
So, thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much for your insight. I guess your second question answered the first question. Because we have people in Afghanistan, we have interest groups who rely on foreign relations and foreign assistance, or how they got status because of those past relations. This is why we are still relied on foreign aid and foreign assistance for our domestic issues. There's a lot of diverse interest now plays in Afghanistan. And because of the long history of war against the Soviet Union and its government in associated government of the time in Afghanistan, these groups were evolved and expanded in foreign countries, and they established a lot of links with the intelligence services of those countries, including the West. So they have a lot of interests with the foreign agencies. So it will take time, I believe, for Afghan politicians to another generation. I believe another generation is required, so that we shed our, from the past legacies and past reliance on foreign countries. And we shouldn't forget that we rely still on supporting our development programs, our security forces on foreign aid for American, NATO, and others. So luckily we have now developed, or the government has developed a base for the domestic revenues, and domestic revenues has been improving in Afghanistan. I heard we have now around 2.5 billion a year domestic revenues. This would, if shift comes to shift, what do you call it in English? There's a lot of room for saving. We have to save. National government elected by the next elections should prioritize saving in Afghanistan, should cut a lot of luxury programs, should cut a lot of luxury expenses that Afghanistan cannot afford. If we cut those, we can afford, we should eat grass and defend our country, like Bhutto said. There's no way. We cannot rely on American aid or British aid or Australian aid for the future. We have to cut half of our budget. We don't need these caravans of armed cars, taking our senators and members of parliament from here to there, let alone the ministers. So there's a lot of room for savings, a lot of room. We are in a situation of war. A war requires a lot of thinking, patriotic thinking, like democracy. Democracy is a good thing, but democracy at the time of war is different than a democracy during the peacetime. The British government during the war, the media itself, censored itself. But we said this is the time not to publish certain news. This is the time not to talk about certain things. Either it was self-censor or government-directed censor. You have to draw a frame at the time of war about democracy. You prioritize. What is the act? My first, when President Ghani became president, by the way, President Ghani is my classmate from high school, so I know him. I proposed to him when he became president, the first thing you do is draw a law, an act of anti-terrorism act. In this act, you define what is a terrorist act, who is a terrorist, who is a supporter of terrorists. And with that process, you make a definition clear for people who understand who is enemy, who is the foe, who is the friend. And then you define what acts are acts that helping the terrorism, whether it's through media, whether it's through speeches, people are speaking, standing, and the other day the guy is talking about questioning the Afghan state. Somebody by the name of Javed Koistani, he was talking something about Afghanistan is not something, I just forgot, but he was talking, questioning the Afghan state itself, the existence of Afghanistan. This is not a time to talk about those things, because it is the enemy. It is the foreign enemies, it is the domestic enemy. You should, so an act of anti-terror act should define these things, so that every bomb explosion, we should not blame the government for that. So a lot of work to be done. Unfortunately, President Ghani was not on the, his position was weak, his administration was weak, he couldn't do a lot of things. Hopefully a new administration, whoever comes to power, has the mandate of people so that they could implement things, draw upon policies, and be forcefully implement those, whether it's in security or economic or whatever.
Thank you, Dr. Seb. Any other question? It just needs to be brief and concise, please.
Manana, I will just try to also speak in English, because most of the people want that in English. I want to just add one point next to your speech about the military of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Compared to our neighbors, still we do not have full support. We have to be prepared for our military, first of all, to be very national, and also anyone who's going to be deciding about the future of Afghanistan, there should be, first one part will be the government of Afghanistan, and the future of Afghanistan should be just decided by the people of Afghanistan on the basis of constitution of the country. This is the red line of the nation of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That's
Dr.
it.
Qasim.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So we just take a few questions.
Yeah,
Come.
sure.
Nurullah Atsal and then Yusuf.
Say salaam.
ډېر مننه تاسو ډېر زبردست لکچر وکړو معلومات ورکړي په دې ځل باندې د افغان نېشنلیزم یو اظهارات مو ولیدل هغه په خارج کې محترمه خبره داسې ده چې امریکایان په دې وطن کې پراته دي دوی داسې مونږ ته راښیي چې مونږ د دې وطن سیویر شو جهاد دهنده یو خو دوی افغانستان داسې نیولی لکه د ګلاس چې په لاس کې که مونږ د ګلاس په ټوکړو دی وایي زه د ګلاس فرش ته راپسې کوم پاکستان ته دې حواله کوم طالب ته دې حواله کوم یا داعش ته دې حواله کوم افغانانو دا جوړښت تر اوسه نه دی کړی چې له امریکایانو سره دا خبره مونږ سپین وکړو چې ته زمونږ سیویر یې که دښمن یې دا خبره په څرګنده توګه باندې کول غواړي امریکایانو د افغانستان په اردو باندې بندیز لګولی ده چې دا اردو به الوتکه نه لري ټانک به نه لري درنده وسله به نه لري د طالب سره به په ډاټسن پېژند کړي امریکایانو د افغانستان په اقتصادي پرمختګ باندې بندیز لګولی ځکه وارداتي بانک به راځي خو دلته ریلوے ټریک به نه جوړېږي د اوبو مینجمنټ به نه کېږي او په خارجه پالیسي کې به د پاکستان لاسبری وي د دې بندیزونو راوتلو لپاره ستاسو باندې کسان یوازې یو فرد کافي نه ده پکار دا ده چې هم په خارج کې هم په داخل کې افغان انټلیجنس چې ده دا اوس منظمه شي اواز شي دا په واشنګټن کې هم دا جرأت وکړي په لندن کې هم دا جرأت وکړي په استرالیا کې هم دا جرأت وکړي او په هېواد کې دننه خو خامخا دا جرأت وکړي زه امرالله صالح ته آفرین وایم هر څوک چې ده دا یوازینی اواز ده په دې تېرو څو میاشتو کې
Tell us if you could make it brief,
چې د
please.
افغانستان د ملت پالنې د افغانستان د ملي ګټو دفاع کړې ده
Say that.
One more comment.
Okay.
That's okay. Very brief, if that's okay, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم څو دقیقې وخت لرم
1 minute or 2 minutes.
دلته ماستران ډاکټران ډاکټران او پروفیسوران روشنفکران و خدمتگاران افغانستان نشستن و آنچه میگویند که من طرفدارشون هستم اما آواز طالب نشنیدم آواز مخالف نشنیدم و این مشکل ما حل نمی‌کنه مذاکره سیاسی و مصالحه سیاسی در پرانسیب غیر قابل رد است اما آنچه 9 ماه در دوحه و قطر گذشت مذاکره سیاسی بود که امریکا جانب افغانی و طالب فرق بین مذاکره سیاسی و مذاکره ایدئولوژیکی را کردن نتانستند آنچه را در قطر به توافقات رسیدن مقدماتی توهین روشنی بود به مردم افغانستان و در این شکل است ما از طالب صحبت میکنیم طالب آن طالبی که در قطر نشسته دو لایه داره این طالب کل طالب نیست یک بخشی از چهره طالب است و اختصاص کردن سرنوشت افغانستان به این طالب و فشار آوردن به حکومت افغانستان که حکومت یک تیم قوی با صلاحیت همکاری را انتخاب کردن مطالبه غلط ناحق و بیجاست تا حال من نشنیدم از حکومت افغانستان که بگوی بابا تیم با صلاحیت دارای دانش چنین و چنان ممکن نیست 15 نفر نمایندگی از مردم افغانستان کردن نمیتونه که قانون اساسی افغانستان فیصله کنه و ساختار حکومتی و ساختار دولتی این مطالبه خطاست در ساحات مختلف چیزی را که جناب خلیلزاد صحبت کردن ما فکر میکنم شخصی که شایسته چنین مذاکرات نداشت جناب خلیلزاد از مبحث‌های ایدئولوژیکی طالب خبر نداره که گفته شد که طالب چیزی برای گفتن نداره طالب بسیار چیزی برای گفتن داره ما مطمئن هستم که آقای خلیلزاد نمیداند سقیفه بن ساعده چی هست. سقیفه بن ساعده شورای هست که طالب فکر میکنه که شورای حل و عقد از اونجا برمیخید، در حالی که از لحاظ ایدئولوژیکی چنین چیزی نیست. در دین اسلام چیزی که آمده خلیفه اول امیر، بعد از او حضرت عثمان و بعد از او حضرت علی. حضرت ابوبکر صدیق بر اساس توصیه انتخاب شده توسط گروه محدودی از مسلمانان و حضرت علی توسط عام. حدیث حضرت پیغمبر است که لا یجمع امتی علی الخطا. در این شک نیست که انتخاب امیر اسلامی و انتخابات از لحاظ فهم ما از دین اسلام یک امر شرعی است، اما طالبی رد میکنه. به این خاطر ده ها مطلب است، به خاطر پرداختن و بحث هایی که اینجا شد ما حدی اقل یک نیم ساعت وقت ضرورت دارم و آن چیزی را که در افغانستان صورت میگیره تأسف بار است و در این راستا طالب باید قانون اساسی را قبول کنه، طالب باید او را قبول کنه. نه ما چرا طالب اکسپتبل بسازیم برای جامعه؟ طالب بگذار قبول نکنه، طالب بگذار بگوی شورای حل و طالب بگذار که هر چیز رو ما هویتش از اون نمیگیریم، کلمه را خلاص کنیم. ما برای طالب میگیم هویتت داشته باش، این حقت است، این دموکراسی است، اما یک چیز امر ما قبول کن. در روز دوم مذاکرات قطر باید گفته میشد که مشروعیت حاکمیت از کجا هست. اگر طالب میگفت که میگویه و دها بار گفت که مشروعیت حاکمیت با جمع کردن 1,500 علما است که من میشناسم و امیر اسلامی است و دیگران حق میتونه مذاکره ختم است. تا وقتی که در و تیمی که از افغانستان ساخته میشه یک چیز فیصله میکنه، چیز دیگری، اون فیصله چیست؟ یک تبع یک رای. اگر این را کس قبول نکرد مذاکره نیست.
Thank you very much. We will have a chance to network during lunch, and we just really want to hear from Dr. Seth. That's the only thing. Please, sir.
I will answer in English if you don't mind.
Any direct question from Dr. Seth?
We shouldn't forget that the West accepted Pakistan's interpretation of problem in Afghanistan. This was done long time ago. Even before when Taliban revived, 2005, 2006, Pakistan convinced the British government, and British government convinced the American government that the war in Afghanistan is an ethnic war. Mm-hmm. Do not involve yourself in it. Mm-hmm. I have heard one of the British generals who, after his tenure in Afghanistan, went home, he was saying that sometimes the British forces were playing a mediator role between Taliban and the government and other groups. I have heard from the German officers, from the American officers, that they said they were laughing at what Karzai was talking about Pakistan, about involvement. Mm-hmm. Pakistan was very clever. They convinced the West, this is a war between Tajik and Pashtun, why you are involving yourself? You know, the war in Afghanistan plays its natural course, takes natural course. This is why America was confused. The West is confused. They now came, hopefully, now they have come to their senses. And they should have come now to their senses and realized that this is not a war between Tajik and Pashtun. It's not a war between Uzbek and Hazara. It's a war fought in Afghanistan on the behest of the Pakistan intelligence and army and me. Everybody in Pakistan are pro-Taliban. From the media, from the political establishment, every single political party is pro-Taliban in Pakistan. Mm-hmm. The army, the establishment, you cannot change that overnight. That mentality was conveyed to the West. And Pakistan had a lot of relationship with the United States and with the British government. So this is why Americans were confused, the British was confused, the West was confused about Afghanistan. They didn't have a strategy, a clear strategy. what they're doing, what they were aiming. This is why we wasted a lot of time, we wasted a lot of... Americans left Afghanistan, 14,000 soldiers, or 120,000 soldiers left. They gave all their equipment to Pakistan Army, and they went to America. So this shows the depth of confusion in American and the Western thinking about Afghanistan. So hopefully, so the government, Ghani and others, convince the West that that is not the case. And especially now, I think there is a thinking is evolving in America and the West, that they are coming to their senses and they are seeing things, actual, the reality of the war in Afghanistan and the role of our neighbors, what role they have played. So hopefully in the future we will have a better understanding.
A little bit on role of diaspora and Nurullah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy, I'm so glad that I have taken this. I was invited by, why I'm here, I was invited by a Afghan community organization in Austria, the Vienna based, to speak on the occasion of the centenary of Afghanistan independence on the 18th of August.
Which was touching our invitation also.
Yeah, and unfortunately that was at the same time I had an invitation from here, but it was touching, the timing wasn't good, and also at the same time there was an invitation from Cologne in Germany to speak in Germany, and they were on the 17th, and so we couldn't arrange that, and there was the only one we could change was the one in Belgium, in Ghent. They agreed kindly to postpone their, this meeting or celebrations to 24th. So I was able to attend Vienna and Ghent. However, what the Cologne organizers did, they organized something like this that we have today, on the 22nd of August. So I had a chance to meet people who are interested, the diaspora, the people who wants to do something or get together, exchange ideas, exchange notes and discuss Afghanistan. Because everybody wants to talk about our future. Mm-hmm. So we had a chance in Cologne to like this nice, friendly discussions, heart-to-heart discussions. And there's a lot of enthusiasm too, so that we could do something about it. So coming to Belgium, same. People told me, you just tell us what you do, we go with you. Same thing in Australia. There was a meeting in Melbourne. They invited me just to talk about Afghanistan things, like friendly, like this. And we had a good discussion there as well. This is a year ago. It was not a conference, it was like this meeting, talking about Afghanistan future and exchanging ideas. So, and in America, I have, I'm getting phone calls every day from Los Angeles, from Virginia, that people there are eager, enthusiastic. They want to do something. They want to get together under a certain type of umbrella. A unifying set of ideas, a unifying set of objectives, that we could all agree to that, and so that they could be part of change in Afghanistan positively. So hopefully something good comes out of this tour, and I'm so glad I
Thank
came.
you very much, Dr. Seb. We have a question from Farishtajan, and then after you, maybe Kakar Seb, you, and then Bakhtar.
Yeah.
Farishtajan.
Well,
shall we get a
of course.
question? It needs to be a question, Kakar Seb, in brief.
It is a question. First of all, I welcome you to London. Thank you for your lecture. It was very insightful. We have learned so much from it. My question is that we knew Khalid's tactics were problematic from the get-go, because one side of it was completely sidelining the Afghan government, even though he went back and forth to Kabul to address the president, but he sidelined it in Qatar. And nobody said anything when until we heard his interview in Tulu, which he basically said that he has agreed on Taliban addressing themselves as the Islamic Emirate, which is like in a way legitimizing them or recognizing them as a government. So why were we quiet in the first place? And in the future, obviously, the peace talks will resume. We're hoping that it will resume. We should make a stance at the very beginning. If we see any sign that the Afghan government, the state, which the government represents, has been sidelined, we should make a stance against it. And my question is that you obviously, you said about the role of diaspora, you spoke about that, and yourself and we all were diasporas, right? A lot of the young generation of Afghans, they are completely lost. They see every single Muslim country's issue as their own, and they completely forget about their own issues, right? In a lot of countries, including Pakistan, they're investing a lot of money on the lobby firms. Unfortunately, the Afghan government cannot afford to spend that much money. Our muscle is our youth. How do we encourage them to speak or to basically to get involved in the Afghan issues as opposed to getting involved in Palestine or Kashmir or other issues which has nothing to do with us, to be frank?
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Just one more, last one. Bakhtar is really need to be brief. You have half a minute.
د افغانستان د غرغمیزه چې د 14 میلادي کال څخه شروع تر دې دمه په دغه کومو بدبختیو کې چې افغان خاوره افغان ولس سوځي یا سوځېدلی ده ډېرو ته مو په دې کې خیر رسېدلی ده خو موږ د دغې اوږدې غمیزې دپاره څنګه کولی شو چې انګلستان روسیان چین امریکایان هندوستان د افغانستان د صلح دپاره دغه ګردي میز ته په افغانستان کې راټول او کېنوو که رښتینې صلح غواړو موږ نه غواړو چې افغانستان د بدبختیو لور ښکار شي د افغانستان جنگ د نړیوالو جنگ زه بولم د افغانستان صلح زه د نړیوالو صلح بولم نو فلهذا موږ وران شوي یو موږ ړنګ شوي یو موږ تیکه تیکه شوي یو نو نورې دنیا ته زموږ پیغام دغه ده چې هغه اټوم بم چې د نړیوالو سره موجود ده دا به د دغې نړۍ دپاره قیامت وي نو موږ د انسانیت په رحم او ترحم باندې دغه بیا غږ په نړیوالو باندې کوو چې یو داسې نړیوال کنفرانس د افغانستان او د نړۍ د امن دپاره دایر شي چې په ټول انسانیت ته مو خیر ورسیږي او د انسانیت خیر غوښتونکي شو.
Thank you very much. Please,
first, thank you for the questions, everybody. About Ahmad Shah Massoud's son's speech, I didn't have a chance to hear him all of his speech, but I heard a little bit. My understanding is that this is a new generation of politicians who is emerging, and it is out of necessity because the old Jamiyat party and Shura Nizar has been disintegrated into little mahfils and little fractions. And as we see, one is candidate of presidential and the other was with another candidate. At least they were in four groups were dispersed. I am not sure if this was by design to have to plant their lead candidates in different teams, so that any team who wins the elections, they are represented and then they converge around him. Or this was out of the disintegration process that is the Jamiyat party is going through. So he emerging now could be a unifying force for the opposition in terms of in the future. And so I see that he will be a force to reckon with in future, because a lot of people are interested with old politicians, the way they were conducting a lot of corruption, a lot of self-interest. So he might be able to unite a lot of people with his stance on issues, social and political issues, for the future. I think he is and his group would be able to get together or bring them together on a platform that for young people in Shamali is showing the way for future in political to get political acceptance and to get political status and to form future or be part of future governments. Now, about youth, this is what we cannot avoid not discussing the problems that around the world, because nowadays, all these problems are interconnected, like the Palestine, the issue, the India-Pakistan problem, the problem with Iran, problem with the West, all of that, and what's happening elsewhere. But I think Afghanistan has a lot of issues itself, and young people are thinking or not. They are very educated now. A lot of people are up to date with current situation in the world and also in Afghanistan. And my hope is that the trend in Afghanistan is to bring young people into administration, to bring young people into politics. So perhaps that will help. And around the world also, Afghan young people are very, very active now in many countries. Like these celebrations of 100 years of independence is demonstrated. They were all young people. They were so enthusiastic about their history, about their role in society. They were taking initiative everywhere. This is all around the world. All the Afghan young people are happy to take part and happy to lead. Some of them are very, very intellectual, highly intellectual people. So hopefully that will help us, in the future.
One sentence is to do this.
Yes. Sir.
One sentence.
You don't think so? The reason for the interest of young people about the Palestine and Kashmir is the lack of knowledge of this youngster about the real Islam, and they don't know really. They read some few words of the Quran, and they are thinking they are the scholar and they will know everything. And this is the lack of the knowledge about Islam push them to this extreme or to this opinions which is really wrong. It needs to be explained by Islamic scholars to them what is their priorities.
That's the root cause. That's the root cause. Yes.
If I could ask a question.
Yes, please.
So I was just wondering, with despite these problems, Khalid's peace initiative and that uncertainty around it, and the fact that it was, it kept Afghans in dark, but in some Afghans, it really induced the hope, some hopefulness, maybe in layperson, people who are living in Afghanistan. There was a real hope that maybe after years and years, this may conclude into something that could be helpful in ending the conflict. Do you think it has actually created a situation where a kind of a vacuum that this hope could be answered now? And would that actually lead into another conflict? Because quite a lot of people have been now hopeful, not just politicians, but individuals, and then that has been taken away.
Yeah, my concern is that it was a false hope, because, okay, suppose the Khalilzad scenario was implemented and he signed a deal with the Taliban, and they start withdrawing. So, and the next step would have been to have this inter-Afghan dialogue. Now, how this plays in reality? How could you have a government delegation is sitting among 5 other groups and has not the right to say we are talking from the government position, you know, as a group position against a Taliban who has been legitimized and status enhanced as a state of Emirat of Islami Afghanistan. Now, how this Taliban, in that situation scenario, just imagine in that scenario, how would they agree to anything less than what they want? They will insist on what they want, and always they emphasize. So I cannot see in that situation any hope for peace. It would have been a prolonged process. It would be a frustrating process, and at the end of the day, there won't be any agreement because Pakistan and Taliban, I think they convinced America on a scenario, and they wanted to implement that scenario.
Thank you, Dr. Zohri. We just have 5 minutes, and I want to take 2 more questions, brief ones. Hanif Alakozai and Halimi Saib, and then if you had time, I will come to you, sir.
So coming back to Khalilzad and Taliban's talk, previously he used to say that they're Pakistan proxies and they'll do as I tell them. In his recent interview, he says that now he thinks differently, and he thinks they're very patriotic Afghans, and he does not believe that they're the army of Pakistan's ISI. That's one question. What is behind this? Does he see something that we don't see? And the second thing is, what do we as Afghans, what do you propose that we do with the Taliban? Do we just dismiss them as terrorists, that they can do whatever they want? Or do we have an alternative solution that we can propose to them and we move forward?
And Halimi sir, if your question brief, it needs to be questioned.
Inshallah. مشکلات در عموم در دنیا و مشکلات سکیوریتی در منطقه هم زیاد است ولی ما از نقطه اگر شروع کنیم قانون اساسی تشکر که بسیار تشکیلات موثر در ارتباط شما رعایت کردید. قانون اساسی را کسی که در ساختار قانون اساسی اشتراک داشته از جمله کسایی است در دنیا اگر 3-4 نفر در بخش اسلام و دموکراسی مطالعه داشته باشه کمالی صرف است. هاشم کمالی که در دولت اندونزیا و مالزیا و دور مشهور است. ولی متأسفانه در کشور ما اکثر جوانای بسیار نخبه باور کنید که از قانون اساسی خبر نیستند. ماهر قانون اساسی نمیخوانند. در بخشی که بر ضد حکومت است اون بخش خود چشم خود کرده و سر در ریگ گل کردن و پایشان بالاست. اونا خیلی متوجه نیستند که این قانون اساسی باور کنید که غیر از اینکه قانون اساسی افغانستان میگه که ما حقوق انسان‌ها را باید به هیومن رایتس احترام کنیم، دیگه هیچ نوع مشکلی در این قانون اساسی شما پیدا کردن نمی‌کنه. و به طور عموم همین منبع مشکل افغانستان در منبع است. و دولت افغانستان در این عرصه شما چه نظر دارید که چی باید بکنه که این قانون اساسی پروپاگاند شود و همین حس نشنالیسم و همین حس در بین جوان‌ها که والا اسلام و دموکراسی در تضاد است. و یک آخری اولین قانون اساسی که در ملی واقعی بود که پیامبر اسلام وقتی با مدینه هجرت میکنن که دکتر صاحب تشکیل دادن اونجا با یهودا و عیسوی قانون اساسی را امضا میکنه. شما تحت این شهر یک جای زندگی میکنید در این شهر.
Thank you.
بله در مورد خلیلزاد آیا و نظر دو در مورد طالبان این خب ما بعد پس میایم با گپ قبلی خود که ما گفتم که پاکستان قانونی ساخت امریکا و غرب که جنگ افغانستان یک جنگ قومی است و این با شما کار نداره. اگر ما این فرضیه را قبول کنیم نال نظر Okay. Now if we go back to that status or statement that I said, Pakistan convinced the West that this war is fought because of the ethnic problems in Afghanistan. So if in that sense, now Khalilzad, what is he saying that this is not a terrorist war because Taliban are fighting for their rights to achieve their, indirectly say, they are fighting to get their legitimate status in the government of Afghanistan. Well, that is how I interpret it, you know, that his position. Otherwise, his approach to discuss with Taliban in absence of the government is from the beginning could be questioned. He has to justify it. Why he's talking to Taliban? If he doesn't accept Taliban as a legitimate political force, then he has no right to talk to them. So this is why he is careful in his deliberations to show that Taliban are not a terrorist organization. They are, they have legitimate demands that could be fulfilled. No matter, no doubt, you know, the Bonn agreement ignored a force in Afghanistan. We all agree to that. Ignored a reality of the country. The reality was that Taliban has, you know, a base in Afghanistan. This is the Afghanistan, traditional values, and there are people who follow traditional values, and now because of long history of living in Pakistan and Pakistan madrasa, educated, so these are now transformed into ideological stance, you know, that mix the traditional values are mixed and confused with the ideological values. Taliban has a fundamental problem with Afghan Pashtunwali. This is not many people understand this. In Afghan Pashtunwali, mullah has not a status that a mullah has like in Iran. A mullah in Hazara, Bamiyan, say, has a different status compared to a mullah in Khogiani. Mullah is doing a job in Khogiani as delivering education, a service to the young. And however, in Hazarajat, mullah is big. Mullah is everybody. In Khogiani, maybe mullah is not called upon, you know, the village meetings by the elders. Maybe he's not part of it. But in Bamiyan, he's leading it. So this is a big difference. So Taliban, by the ideology, they are putting status of mullah ahead of the elders of the tribe, of the qawm, of the clique. So which is not in accordance with the traditions of the people, the tribal belt, the Pashtun qawm, and the Pashtunwali. So this is not many people understand this. So so moving on from here.
One technical question.
No. I'm really sorry.
We do with the time.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we cannot ignore Taliban. Their reality, and the process is how to integrate them into our social and political life. So, and how we should, this is a long process. So they should agree on certain fundamental principles that about the structure of the government. They should agree to that first. Once you agree on certain fundamentals of structure of the government and how the government is run, which is primary here is the vote of people, how people should decide on and exercise their vote or their wishes in forming a government. Then we could integrate the rest
Thank you very much, Dr. Saib. That's so nice of you. We will, Dr. Saib will answer your question later. Halimi Seven, some of our friends have got some questions as well. But your lunch is going to get cold. We will have
After
time to network after lunch or during lunch. We will talk. Thank you.